Previously on the Sugar Baby Confessionals.
We're finding that I like the Brit more than he likes his girlfriend. Let's be careful here. Like, you're actually my wife. You're not somebody else's girlfriend. And he stripped me naked, bound my wrists, used a rope, tied me up to the ceiling. I mean, exactly the way my fantasy was. The Brit took a liking to our waitress, so I propositioned her. There were years during which I would have Jehovah's Witness Bible study on a Wednesday, and then on Sunday, my grandparents would come and pick us up and bring us to church. I just looked at everybody and I'm like, you full of shit, and you full of shit, and you full of shit, and you full of shit. I've never felt guilty about sex. I feel like it is a huge part of my spirituality.
If familiarity equals the death of eroticism, then does a little mystery merely add to the excitement? What happens if you start to keep things from your partner or your family? Not everyone has such an open relationship as Ruby and FP, and when they stray, they have different reasons for taking a lover other than the one they're wedded to. For instance, what if one person doesn't share the other's tastes or needs in the bedroom? I'm used to seeing lies as the absolute antithesis of a healthy relationship. But is there a chance that some lies can help keep people together? This week on the Sugar Baby Confessionals, we discuss secrets.
What happens when you start to keep things from your partner?
Yeah.
Because not everybody has such an open relationship as you.
That's
And what
very
if
true.
your partner doesn't share your fantasies or needs in the bedroom?
Well, I mean, listen, each person and each relationship is going to be unique. So figuring out what your needs are, I would say, is the place to start. And we kind of touched on this the last time we spoke to each other about being as introspective with yourself as possible, really questioning yourself, deciding what it is that makes you feel loved, deciding what it is that turns you on, and going after it. Now, I would say that once you kind of figure those things out, or as best you can by yourself, try to get there with your partner, I mean, if you're in a committed relationship with someone that you really love and it's healthy for the most part and you don't want to leave them, but you just find that the sex is lacking. I mean, if you really care about the other person, they care about you, then it can be fixed. There's all sorts of things that two people can get up to liven things up.
So this is quite fascinating because you as a sugar baby are saying, don't give up on your committed relationship and go behind their back and have another relationship. I mean, obviously, I know the kind of person you are, honesty being important between you and favorite person. You wouldn't go behind his back. But for a lot of people listening, I think they would find it quite hard to swallow, the fact that you're kind of saying, no, fix your relationship and it's possible and do it, rather than having an affair on the sly.
Really? Do you think people would find that odd?
Well, I think just because of the whole sugar baby thing, I think some people always associate that with adultery.
Infidelity.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? To me, there's a very big difference between emotional infidelity and physical infidelity. And you know what? I don't even want to use the word infidelity, actually. What I should say is there's a difference between physical monogamy and emotional monogamy. Let me go there. So infidelity is specifically something in which you are hiding, you are lying, you are being deceptive. And while I don't think I'm ever in a position to judge someone for doing that, that's the reason that I can be with sugar daddies who are married and their wives don't know that I'm with that person. I don't know what goes on in their marriage, and I'm not someone to judge. So if that man feels like he needs to get something fulfilled and it has to be outside of his marriage bed, that's for him to decide. That's not for me to decide. But you asked me what my best advice would be. And my best advice, even to a sugar daddy, in fact, I had this conversation with Mankini, would be to try as hard as you can to fix what you have. Try as hard as you can to get what you need out of the relationship that you are committed to. Because if you're able to, then life is so much more wonderful. It's so much sweeter like that. So that would be infidelity, I suppose. What I'm referring to when I say physical monogamy versus emotional monogamy, I think a lot about favorite person on this topic. So he and I are very obviously not physically monogamous. I see sugar daddies. He's got a lover. We enjoy being with other people. We find that it adds to our own sex life. So we're not monogamous in that sense, but I truly believe that we are monogamous when it comes to our emotional life, the deep attachment that we feel for each other, the commitment that we've made to have children and raise them together and build a life together. That never once has come into question for either one of us. So I don't think that being with another person physically, even liking that person, enjoying their company, having affection for them, the way that he does for his lover and the way I do for the Brit in particular, it doesn't take away from what we have for each other.
When we were recording the podcast, the Ashley Madison website had just been hacked. For those of you who don't know, Ashley Madison is a dating site specifically for couples who want to have affairs. All the users' private information had gone up online, and this meant that loads of people were discovering friends, acquaintances, and partners had used the site.
What advice would you have for someone who's looked online and seen that their partner is on this site? And vice versa, what would you say to someone who's on the site, who's been revealed or contemplating opening up about being on the site to their partner?
I would try as hard as I could to look at this experience, the Ashley Madison reveal, as a turning point that you could use to create something really wonderful. Now, most people hear about affairs in a negative way. They hear about the affair that breaks up a marriage. What you don't hear about is the affair that saves the marriage. It happens a lot. You would be surprised. There are all sorts of reasons for people to want to have sex with another person, and that reason might not be such a bad thing. That reason might not be enough for you to say, shit, like everything's, broken now, it's ruined, I can't be with you anymore. I mean, each couple has to wade through those waters themselves, but I would say that if you love your partner, whether you are the person who was cheated on or if you're the person who did the cheating, if you love your partner and you want to be with that person, then use the experience of being found out or called out, whatever, as a positive thing. Take it and turn it into being closer to your partner, being honest with them about what your needs are, and turning to them for forgiveness. And when I say forgiveness, I don't just mean you're the person who cheated, so you need to be forgiven. There are always circumstances that create the scenario in which somebody cheats. So while the person who did the cheating is obviously, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, more to blame, I don't think that they're fully to blame, ever. There are two people in every relationship, and you don't know what goes on unless you're one of those people.
So you don't think that you should make a distinction between people who genuinely are having problems in the relationship that they can't seem to overcome, i.e., as many of the sugar daddies have said, a partner who has a very low libido, who just doesn't want as much sex, and then the type of person who is a sort of serial cheat, who is sort of incapable of being faithful but hasn't been able to find a person who they can be honest with about that, and that kind of scenario works. So they just stay within monogamous relationships, but then lie and, cheat. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, of course, you make a good point. I think that there is a big difference between those two sorts of people. You're reminding me of a potential sugar daddy that never came to fruition for me.
Right.
Have I told you anything about Frenchie?
Remember Frenchie? Here's the deep dive.
Somebody that I met online. That's how we first got in contact with each other. And we met once for coffee one morning. And sure, he was hot as hell. Oh my gosh. I would have loved banging the shit out of that guy. So he was probably about average height for a man. Very sandy blonde hair that was kind of swept to the side. Such a handsome face, like strong jawline. He was so symmetrical, but very masculine still. Like, I don't want to say that he was a pretty man because he wasn't pretty. He looked very manly, but just beautiful in his manliness, if that makes any sense.
I'm gonna compliment someone by calling them symmetrical. You are so symmetrical. It's just such a funny way of complimenting
sure, you
someone.
make fun of me, but that's what we're programmed to look for, is symmetry.
Oh, I'm in trouble then. No jokes.
Oh, be quiet. You're so gorgeous.
Well, you know, one of the girls points one direction, the other one points the other. You know what I mean? So back to Frenchie.
I can't talk. Okay, back to Frenchie. He had a really sexy smile, really beautiful white straight teeth. I think that he must have actually whitened the shit out of his teeth because they were practically glowing. They were so white. It was like shocking how white they were. Yeah, he had nice broad shoulders, narrow waist, that kind of like V, of a man's back always gets me. He had that, and he was dressed impeccably. Beautiful button-down shirt, nice dress pants. I'd say his shoes were a little bit of an affectation there. They were a bit too pointy. They were obviously quite expensive. They looked very expensive, but yeah, they were just too pointy, and I kept looking down
he's
at them
French,
going,
he's French. He's got to have the style. I don't know why I'm giving him a German. I don't know who Austrian accent.
Is that like a half German, half Russian?
Anyway, I'm sure. I
Carnival worker. That was like
a carny. Yeah, he's a carny.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, he was just gorgeous. He was gorgeous to look at, and kind of on the young side for a sugar daddy. He was only 38. So a married guy, 2 very young children. His one son was 2 years old, and the second one was only 4 months. So, yikes! That made me feel. If anything, would make me feel like kind of bad to spend time with a sugar daddy, it would be that.
Yeah.
Because I have been pregnant, I have been a new mother, I know what it feels like to live in a body that's just gone through that kind of trauma, and I did have a lot of sympathy for his wife. Anyway, this guy was such a narcissist. I think he actually truly suffered from, without me exaggerating, narcissistic personality disorder. He was just off the charts with it. Everything was about him. But at the same time, he was really fascinating to talk to because he was such a wonderful flirt. He was very good at being attentive and sexy and saying just the right thing. And I could tell immediately it's not because of me so much. He just enjoyed himself. He enjoyed being that person who turned someone on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we met, had coffee, interesting conversation. I could tell that he liked me because he would make a joke and then reach out and just gently touch my calf of my leg. And whenever somebody touches you, that's just the sign that they want you. So he walked me to my car and we had the most incredible kiss, SD. Holy shit, I'll tell you right now, for the rest of my life, I'm going to remember this kiss. It was incredible. I got lightheaded. I mean,
wow.
I don't, yeah.
Did he sort of pull you down so you sort of one leg up in his arms?
Oh, you're so romantic. Do you think that's what good kisses are like? The way they show them in movies. My leg popped up. I think at one point I wrapped a leg around him, but it wasn't it wasn't sticking up like that picture from the 1940s in front of, the Times Square building or whatever.
Are you saying that he would kind of be more of like someone who's a cheater?
During the conversation that we had, he revealed to me that he currently had a mistress, when he met me. He already had a mistress that he would meet a couple of times a week to just fuck for a few hours. And his wife had previously caught him with a different mistress that he had, ended it with. So his wife was very suspicious of his movements and was always on top of him, where are you going? What are you doing? When will you be home? Checking his WhatsApps, checking his emails. And I'm just thinking to myself, what are you doing here with me? It sounds like your life is already completely dramatic and very full. Surely you don't need another person in it.
It's interesting that you're so honest about all this stuff. If we're talking about honesty and not keeping secrets, you'd think that in order to service his need to have lots of drama and lots of different people and lots of intrigue, he would have lied to you and just been like, oh yeah, my wife doesn't understand.
I think that is exactly what he did with mistress number 1. I think it was something about me that he just took a particular liking to. Goes back to that thing about making yourself vulnerable. I am so honest with people in general, and certainly I'm very honest with the sugar daddies that I meet. I think that caught him off guard a little bit. So I was just, he'd ask me a question, and I just just put it all out there and be really, really authentic. And what I got in return was the same, which is kind of surprising considering how narcissistic he was. But I could tell he really enjoyed it. He liked the fact that he could reveal, so the mistress, obviously the wife knew nothing about mistress number 1 or potential sugar baby, i.e. me. The mistress knew that he was married, but didn't know that he was going to be meeting with me, and he couldn't tell her anything about it. Right? Like he had to play the mistress just the right way. And then there's me going like, okay, well, yeah, I don't think you're a particularly nice person, but I'm not going to judge you.
Did you say that to him?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He started laughing. He started laughing and he reached out and he touched my knee, squeezed my knee. Okay. And he said, oh, I'm going to like you. I can tell I'm going to like you.
If you look at the pattern, it sounds like he always needs someone to not know something about, another aspect of his life. So wife doesn't know about mistress. Mistress doesn't know about sugar baby. Yeah. I mean, how would he'd probably find that he'd probably need to go and get another sugar baby just so that there'd be someone that you didn't know about. So this is what we're talking about, though. Do you think that some people are compelled to lie in these situations?
Yeah. I think that he had a very deep-seated mental disorder. Seriously, I do. Now, if you are in a relationship with someone like that, like if we're talking about Frenchie's wife, that woman needs to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
It is not getting better. I mean, if she wants to have some kind of a real marriage with someone, then it would have to be with someone other than him.
It's rare for Ruby to be so adamant about something like this when it comes to her sugar baby activities. I feel like a large part of her sort of absolves the other part from any kind of blame, in the sense that she doesn't take on any guilt for what the sugar daddies choose to do. I'm not saying she should be taking on guilt, just that she doesn't as a rule. The fact that she states explicitly that she thinks this guy has an actual mental health issue, which BT dubs in the not-so-recent past would simply be called sowing his wild oats or playing the field, insert farming and or sports metaphor here. Well, this would seem to indicate that this guy must be pretty out there.
It is not going to get better with a person like that. He has deep-seated issues that need to be worked out through a fuckload of psychotherapy. No doubt in my mind. But to be honest with you, SD, I don't know how many people are genuinely like that. In my experience, most people are quite loving. They want to feel known. They want to feel fulfilled. And if they're with the right person, I think that they could get there.
Right.
Figuring out whether or not they're with the right person, I mean, that's up to them. But I don't think that Frenchie, like his kind of extreme example, I don't think that's normal. I don't think that's, kind of the average experience.
Is there any way of telling if the person is that kind of person, or, if you say you've discovered your partners on this site, how can you be sure it's something fixable versus that it's just something in their nature that they're never gonna be honest, truly honest with you?
I would go to therapy, really. I'm a big fan of therapy, of going to counseling, whether you need to start by yourself, whether you ask your partner to start going by himself or herself, or the two of you go together. Which way you want to start it, I think that's the best place to begin that kind of exploration, because, there's so many questions, there's so much hurt, there's so many what ifs. It's like this big ball of twine, and you don't know which thread to pull on to try and unravel it. So to have somebody who is trained properly, they are objective, it's really helpful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of anger as well from the person who might discover this kind of thing.
Anger and hurt, absolutely.
No, you were saying, you should see it as an opportunity to try and salvage your relationship, but there's a lot of people who just wouldn't be able to, just because it's incredibly hurtful. If you haven't had discussions, it's very hard. I
asked Ruby if there was ever a stage where she had ever hurt anyone like that, or been hurt.
Yeah, I did in the past. As far as I know, I've never been cheated on, but I've cheated on people before, definitely. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so easy for me to not be judgmental with others, because I have been in that position before, and in my own limited way, I can imagine various scenarios in which you feel like, well, this is an appropriate way to act, even though it's really hurtful.
Can you give any specifics about, a particular incident?
Well, I'm hoping FP won't be upset with me for putting this one out there.
Non-specific specifics.
The truth is, when Favorite Person and I met each other, I was with someone, and we remained in contact. Nothing physical happened when we first met with FP and I, but we remained in contact for a long time, probably close to 2 years. We emailed each other back and forth because I was in one country and he was in another, and during that time, we really fell in love with each other. He became my best friend, but I was with this other guy. And when Favorite Person moved to my country, there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of things are up in the air, and, who am I going to leave? Who am I going to be with? That kind of thing. So when we first got together, it was not what you would say completely on the up and up.
I remember FP talking about their burgeoning relationship to my husband and I. One of the things about FP is that he is an amazing storyteller. I always felt like he should be the one writing novels, because everything with him was so much funnier, more intense when he told it. We forgive him the occasional embellishments, the extra bit of gilding here and there, because, the stories were worth it. As a writer, I know there's an intersection between reality and fiction, kind of magical hinterland with a truth and beauty kiss. On the other hand, in my real life, I crave the scalpel edge of honesty to keep me sharp, so I know where I am and who other people are, so I know where to locate myself in this crazy mixed-up world. When I get tired of the aridity of this discipline, I can escape to my created landscapes. For some people, reimagining their world in a slightly more heightened way is, how they add spice. With all this in mind, before I met her, I deducted like 40% of Ruby's amazingness as a cautionary measure. And instead she ended up being just as good as advertised. Their meet-cute was a chance encounter at a party where she was involved with somebody else, her high school sweetheart. They built their relationship on words exchanged in emails until she disentangled herself. The choice to be together wasn't an easy one, but they made it, and here we are 10 years later.
What weren't you getting from the other relationship that you
Oh my gosh. A better question would be to ask, what was I getting? Oh man. The other person that I was with long, long ago, it feels almost like somebody else's life, to be honest with you. He had an idea in his mind of who I was and what I was like, but it wasn't actually me. And that idea of his, that's who he was in love with. He wasn't actually in love with me, and it just caused a lot of problems, as you can imagine. So then favorite person came along, and he really did seem to love me for me. And then, of course, I've already told you about that incredible conversation that I was courageous enough to have with him. But the whole reason that I felt like I could even try for it is because of the way favorite person had always treated me from the very beginning. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's why I have such a big thing about wanting to feel really known by people. Because I lived for a number of years feeling completely not known. Not even feeling like I was, like someone was interested in me. He wasn't interested in me. He was interested in this idea of me that he wanted me to conform to.
Right, that's quite tough. Because I mean, you didn't have the manual; he had the manual.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, yeah. It was awful. It was really, really bad.
But in the end, you were honest with him?
No. I was never honest with him. I just left.
Right. So he never knew this. What happened?
I think he kind of figured it out. I mean, we knew, we were in a certain circle of people, and when I left him, I started dating favorite person. So obviously he knew that immediately. So I think he probably figured some things out on his own, but I wasn't honest with him. No, I was too afraid of hurting him. Which is kind of ironic, considering the fact that if I had just been honest from the very, very beginning, I probably would have hurt him way less. That's a life lesson I have learned since then. But when you're in your 20s, you think you know everything, and you actually know shit.
But, I mean, this is the thing. I think the thing about secrets is that they do take their toll on you spiritually.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
They suck up so much energy, both mental energy and physical energy. Absolutely. I mean, when I very consciously decided not to lie anymore and to just be as honest as I possibly could be with everybody, such a weight was lifted off my shoulders. When you lie to somebody else, it's like you're putting yourself in a prison because you feel this pressure to keep up the lie or else you're going to be found out. And the fear of that is what drives you to keep up this pretense. Oh man, and it's just so stupid.
I was reading an article about a journalist who kind of went on Ashley Madison to sort of find out why people cheat and why they have affairs but stay in a marriage, for example. And he was saying they didn't want to break up with their partner, but they were feeling like the partner wasn't interested in them that way, didn't have enough time for them. And,
and that's exactly my point. I think most of these scenarios are probably very rescuable.
I think the danger with secrets is how they can kind of creep up on you. You saw people around you as a child telling white lies, and it made life easier. And maybe cheating is one of those things where you rationalize one lie away, and then it's easier to rationalize the next and the next and the next. And as long as your partner doesn't know, you feel sort of like in your mind it's okay.
Yeah. A lie that I used to tell myself all the time was, what somebody doesn't know can't hurt them. And that's not true, because and whether you understand it or not, the lie hurts you. And if you are hurting, then you are not your best self for that person. And it affects them. It always affects them. You can tell yourself as much as you want otherwise, but that's not the case.
And you might think it isn't hurting them, but it is hurting them. No matter how insensitive or non-observant you feel your partner is, they will sense something from you. If you've been together for any length of time, they will sense that there's something not right. And I
Yeah.
think that is part of the damage of a lie that people don't realize, is that everybody subconsciously is aware when their partner is keeping something from them.
Preach it, sister.
Yeah, so yeah, I just want to
I agree with you 100%.
This is based on nothing factual, just merely my own experience at being a terrible liar, which I'm an honest person because I couldn't lie to save my life. as you know, I can't.
I know. I just couldn't even picture you even trying to lie.
Well, it's very inconvenient. I'll have you know. There's many situations in life where a nice, cushy little white lie could save a lot of problems.
Sorry, I think he's getting his diaper changed.
If you're wondering about Ruby's thoughts on dogma, check out episode 7. That's the episode in which we tackled religion. Yep, we went there. So help me God, Buddha, Krish... Never mind.
But I think in principle, it's just better to keep your... It's like, I think of it as sort of keeping your soul clean and tidy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't help but picturing it like having a little bit of smut, a little bit of schmutz on your soul every time you tell a damaging lie, you know, something that is profound like that, or even the little ones. It gets a bit cloudy.
Okay, we're going there a bit. Just a little. This kind of thing is clearly a relic of my Catholic childhood. That was one part of the doctrine that always appealed to me, the idea of forgiveness, of being made clean again simply by confessing. Kind of like a metaphysical etch-a-sketch.
There is an aspect of secrecy to that as well, because you're going into a box with a guy and you could pretty much say anything and he's going to wipe the slate clean, but that doesn't mean that the slate is wiped clean for other people in your life who you may have hurt.
You always have a choice. You always have a choice.
Let's move on to family. I mean, I'm sure that there's loads of people in your life that you can't tell about this sugar baby experience. How has that been for you, wrapping your head around that?
You know, I do find it somewhat uncomfortable just because I have become, through conscious practice, such an honest person. And I personally don't feel any kind of guilt or shame about what favorite person and I get up to. So there are people that I probably wouldn't mind knowing that we do this, and it would in some ways feel a little bit easier if we could just be honest about the fact, not to go into details. I can count on less than one hand the number of people who are in the know about favorite person and myself and what we get up to. And I think at this point, favorite person could probably say much the same. There are a few very close friends of his that he's confided in. You know, it feels good to be known like that by your friends and have them go, yeah, you're still awesome and I love you, so rock on and enjoy yourself. But I think telling family in particular is something that we really can't do, especially older family, I find. Not that anybody really wants to talk in detail with their parents and their grandparents about their sex lives, but I think especially for us, we really can't go there.
Why is that?
They'd just be too judgmental. They wouldn't understand. I think they would be quite negative in their view of it and pull us down a bit.
Is that a burden, though, keeping that for them?
Not really. I don't think about it too much, to be honest with you. Even if favorite person and I didn't have an open relationship, I wouldn't be talking to my grandmother about my sex life. So this is just an aspect of it. It's just one more aspect of it that I don't talk about. With certain people, it does feel like a burden. With certain people, I wish I could just be honest with them and have it out there, but I don't think they would be able to handle it.
I've really been wondering what Ruby's going to tell her children about this. It's something that I'd be worried about. I mean, it's one thing with parents or grandparents, they've made their own choices along the way, And if they judged you for your indiscretions, well, they're old enough that you wouldn't have to feel responsible for their reactions. But for children, it's different. Ruby has a little girl. Could finding this out, that men paid mum for sex, impact her in some unforeseen way? For better or worse, you're modeling behavior for your children. I feel confident in Ruby as a mother and that she has her children's best interests at heart, but the messiness of life has a way of, leaking all over your nice, clean intentions. And if Ruby keeps it secret, then she'll always be waiting for the moment when her kids find out, whether it's 10 years from now or on her deathbed. That new understanding will color their memories of her. I'm probably being overdramatic. What can I say? I'm a writer. I'm always tugging at narrative threads. And I guess, in the end, it's Ruby's tapestry, not mine.
In terms of your children, how are you going to explain it to them one day? Do you feel like it's not going to be a problem, you're going to be completely honest with them, or you're going to wait for a while? Obviously, you're not going to tell them now.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a really wonderful question. And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for it because I think that's something that I'll have to talk about with favorite person when we feel like it's necessary, I suppose. Like that's a bridge that I'll cross when I get to it. I honestly don't know how long this phase of our lives is going to last. It's not like I think favorite person and I are going to be polyamorous forever. Maybe we will, but maybe we won't. In fact, right now I'm kind of leaning towards this is just a hot trend of the moment. And, one day in the future when life is a bit different, we'll move on, look back on this time with fond memories, but be enjoying something else about our sex life and each other. So I don't know. I don't think I'll ever have to tell them. We'll just have to see how that goes.
So that is an option. You're not sort of definitely going to tell them one day. You're going to sort of put it aside as a chapter of your life that's closed and kind of not tell them.
Yeah. I think it depends on how long-lived this becomes for us. If this is something that we're always going to do, then yeah, eventually I think we will probably have to have a conversation with their kids. Once they get to be teenagers, I'm sure they'll be curious about hey, who's dad going out with tonight,
Yeah.
Or wait, what? Well, who's mom seeing? And at that time, I don't know what I'll say to them.
How does it make you feel to imagine the conversation?
That's a really wonderful question. I feel a little awkward right now, but that's only because I don't know what I would say. I'll have to think about it for a long time before I come up with what I think is the right thing to say. One thing I do know is that I'm not going to lie. I might not go into a hectic amount of detail, but I'll be honest with them.
Will you feel odd about saying it's not just a polyamory thing? There's also money involved, money changing hands.
No, I won't, because I don't feel ashamed of it. That's not something that makes me feel bad in any way. Although, to be honest with you, I'm thinking about it now. I don't know if my children would need to have that level of detail. Just think about it. You were telling me a story not that long ago about how your mom stumbled across hot pictures that she took for your father when the two of you were looking through her phone.
That makes it sound like I was digging through her drawers. No, I know. Rifling. To be fair, I do rifle for her drawers. I look through her drawers all the time because she's got very good taste in clothes, and I'm always stealing her clothes. But I think there are certain drawers, I wouldn't go under the bed, looking in boxes and stuff like that. But no, it was just on her phone.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is that you, as her daughter, you stumble across this and you're like, ugh. No, it's okay. You don't have to tell me. And I'm sure my kids would be much the same. So I'll only tell them what I feel like they need to know, honestly, just so that they can understand the situations. So I probably wouldn't tell them anything about the money, but not because I'm ashamed of it.
So I suppose you're going to wait until they actually start asking you questions. Right.
Yeah,
And until then, just
exactly.
kind of allow them to live without the benefit of knowing what mommy and daddy are getting up to with their with their naughty bits.
Well, it is a private thing.
Well, this is what we're talking about. I guess privacy and what is private, what shouldn't be private, what should be private from the people that are closest to you. I mean, I think the hardest thing is living a life of secrecy where you can't tell people. I find it an incredible burden to not be able to tell people something. It's painful to me.
I know. And don't you feel such joy being able to talk about something with someone?
But not everybody will have as good a reaction as favorite person had with you. And that is the problem. I think a lot of people, their sort of fear of opening up can be met with the reality of someone actually rejecting them. And I guess what as a last parting note, I mean, what would you say to people who open up and try to be honest and are met with rejection?
Well, the first thing I would say is that I'm really, really sorry if that's the experience that someone has. That sucks. To put yourself out there and to have the worst come back at you. I've had it happen, and it's really, really painful. So number one, I'm always sorry to hear about someone going through something like that. And number two, I would say that at least you can feel truly proud of yourself for being courageous and putting yourself out there. It might feel like, what's the word, a real like crappy consolation prize, but what I found in my own life is that as time moves on, if you can look back at your own behavior and say to yourself, I'm proud of how I reacted. I may not have had the best reaction from someone, but I'm okay with how I treated them, then, that's huge. That's something that you can always carry with you. And, just a very quick little example of that. We were speaking earlier about Frenchie, and I never told you how that story ended. So the way things ended with Frenchie, we met for breakfast, had that amazing kiss, agreed that we wanted to see each other again. And I'm thinking to myself, fabulous. This guy seems like he would be a wonderful sugar daddy. He sent me a message suggesting an arrangement that was not an arrangement. It was very confusing and quite irritating, to be frank. In a nutshell, he wanted me to be mistress number 2. He did not want to give me an allowance. He didn't want to have a sugar baby. He wanted another mistress when he could fit me in, because he was just so busy with his wife and his kids and his work and mistress number 1 that he couldn't tell about, me. So I sent him an email back saying, thanks, but no thanks. If your life changes and things open up and you decide you would like to have a sugar baby, give me a call, because I do really like you and I think we could have fun together, but that's not going to work for me. But I have to say, he was quite slick. He was really trying to work me. So he started texting me, and he did it incessantly. In fact, I don't know how this man had time for any other women, because he would send me so many text messages. Seriously.
Can you give us an example of the sort of things he said?
Oh, just like little things. Like, I would wake up in the morning and on my phone there would already be a text from him that said, "Good morning, special one. I've been thinking of you. What are you doing today?" So it started off very light, very sexy messages, very flirty. And of course, I loved the attention, so I would respond to him. And we had this kind of relationship building back and forth over a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. It was quite a while of this every day. And he kept asking to see me again. And I kept putting him off because he was still very non-committal about an allowance. And I'm not looking for a lover. That's just not where I am right now. I'm looking for a sugar daddy. So I kept putting him off. Favorite person didn't like Frenchie from the very beginning. His hackles just immediately raised. There was something about this guy that just really turned him off. I think it was the fact that favorite person found him so arrogant. Any kind of narcissist is going to be quite arrogant, I think. And of course, he wasn't giving me what I wanted either. which I think irritated favorite person big time. But I found him really interesting. The fact that he was such a narcissist was just fascinating to me. And so after probably a week or two of us texting back and forth and being in such constant contact, I decided I was never going to sleep with him. I decided, he just did not seem like the kind of person who would treat me well if we became intimate. And I told him this, and he thought it was hysterical. Frenchie was like, oh, sure, you tell yourself that, but come on, like, you felt the magic of that kiss. I know you want me. It's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I felt the magic of the kiss. I'm really attracted to you, and I'd love to fuck your brains out. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. So we're going to be friends. And that's really how I looked at him, as someone who I could be friends with, even though he was such a crazy, awful person. This confused the hell out of favorite person. He's like, what are you doing? Why would you waste your time on this guy? Which, fair enough. But I don't know, I found him really interesting. And then when Frenchie started making jokes about how he was going to fall in love with me and, we might even end up together, you don't know. But of course we wouldn't, because I'm so happily married, wink, wink. When he started making little jokes like that, favorite person just fucking lost it. He was like, that's it. He's gone. I'm vetoing him. He has no respect for us. He has no respect for me. He has no respect for our marriage. Yeah. And, fair enough. Like, I think favorite person had a very, very good point in saying all of that.
Yeah.
At the time, I was slightly irritated because I knew that I hadn't said or done anything wrong, given the parameters of, what favorite person I believe is okay. I was very clear the whole time with Frenchie about what he could expect from me and what he couldn't expect. But the ripcord was pulled. So as soon as favorite person did that, I sent Frenchie a message. In fact, it was the day before we were supposed to meet each other for the second time. I had finally acquiesced and agreed to have breakfast with him, even though I made it very clear that I would not be sleeping with him. And that was a very long build-up to tell you that Frenchie was not particularly gracious in hearing that I no longer wanted to communicate with him. He was quite hurtful, cursed me out, called me a false friend. It didn't surprise me, given what a narcissist he is. Any kind of a narcissist immediately rails against anything that gives them pain. It's a part of the mental disorder. But I did find it kind of surprising, my reaction. It made me really sad. I think I had grown a little bit attached to this person. Like, I was truly in my own mind becoming his friend. So to be treated that way was painful. But every time, he sent me a message, I would respond with just straight up kindness.
As Ruby finishes this anecdote, it occurs to me that this may not be the best example of what it means to be really honest about something and getting a poor response. Not to put too fine a point on it, Frenchie seems like the kind of guy you might find on a dating site like Tinder, the bi Felicia type, who slut shames a woman for politely ending an interaction. But in terms of speaking to someone you actually care for about something painful and intimate, and then being met with a bad response, I think Ruby's point is still relevant, that you'll always feel better about having kept your own integrity in your response, no matter how badly the other person takes it.
You wrote, well, fuck this, fuck you. And I wrote back saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. I really never meant to hurt you, but my friendship with you is causing a problem in my marriage, so I have to say goodbye. Like, I was really calm. I was really gentle. And looking back on it, I feel really proud of myself, how I handled that situation. So for anybody out there who turns to their partner and they say, I need this, I'm not getting that, this is who I am, know me, love me, be with me, and they don't get a good response, just try your hardest to be gentle, try your hardest to be kind, because at least you'll always have that. You'll be able to look back on your own behavior and say, I was the person that I wanted to be in that moment.
if it doesn't work out because of that, if the person says, look, I can't give you that, or that just fundamentally disgusts me, maybe it's time to extricate yourself from the relationship. Maybe it's better to find another person who can accept you like you did with favorite person.
Exactly. I mean, do you really want to be with someone who doesn't actually want to be with you? Of course not.
To be honest, sometimes I don't even want the real me jokes. Can I do that with myself? Can I?
No, you can't.
It seems like we've circled round to that inevitable truth. People just have very different ideas about what constitutes a lie, the degrees of falsehood, the many shades between white and, well, all-out inky black deceit. Being in a relationship with someone who can walk into a room and immediately sense if I'm keeping something from him, it means that even if I wanted to, I couldn't pull the wool over his eyes. Nope, not even for surprise birthday parties. Let's just say the Spanish Inquisition has nothing on him, and I do expect it, every time. I hope it was worth knowing exactly where I was hiding all the booze and party food, hubby. But the point is, who really wants to live with deceit? It's exhausting. Some people, like Frenchie, enjoy the facade that lying to the people in their lives gives them. Life is heightened in some way, like a movie starring them as the main character. And then again, is it even possible to be 100% transparent with your partner anyway? There are things we'd never tell them because we know it might hurt them. Isn't that just as bad when looked at through the magnifying lens of strict morality? I guess it comes down to the big uns. Those truths that would materially alter how other people see you. And how well you want to be known by the people who care. Warts and all, or photoshopped like a Kardashian? Also, it seems to me that history and literature teaches us that lies give birth to baby lies. They form colonies, populating your brain until all your normal thoughts are evicted. In the end, I guess it comes down to how much dishonesty you can live with. This podcast was produced and edited by me, Sarah May Tucson, with help from Beth Keane, Mike Scott, Geraldine Elliott, and Catherine Hoffmeyer. The music you've heard on the podcast comes from Danny Green's albums Obituaries and Leish, as well as Kristen McClement's album The Wild Grips. Find out more about Leish by going to leishmusic.com. That's LAISH music.com. And hear Kristen's work at kristenmcclement.com. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about your thoughts on religion and or lies within relationships. Do you want Ruby to answer your questions? If we get enough, we might create some bonus content with Ruby answering the best ones. Email us here, fablegazers@gmail.com. Tweet us at @fable_gazers, or take a peek at our lovely Instagram account. Keep looking out for our cartoon representations of Ruby and Madeline's adventures with characters like the Marquis and the Brit. These images are created by Kathy Tucson. We're Fable Gazers, one word. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is very much appreciated and helps to keep us going. Names and details have been changed to protect the anonymity of those involved. This has been a Fable Gazers production.